welcome to yet another Housing.com webinar. Our topic of discussion today is something that gets relegated to Women's Day celebrations. So we decided to not take the beaten path and bring this topic into a mainstream discussion. Today we are talking about how women are finally becoming an important segment of home buyers for the Indian real estate industry. I'm Jumur Ghosh, Editor-in-Chief, Housing.com News. And joining me today for this discussion are our panelists, Reeza, Sebastian, Karimpanal, who's the President, Residential Business Embassy Group. Hi, Reeza. Can all the panelists unmute themselves?
Hi,
Sanjay Garyali is the Business Head for Housing Finance and Emerging Market Mortgages, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Sanjay, warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Jumur.
Yeah, I'd like to mention to our audience members, that this webinar is co-branded with Kotak Mahindra Bank. So warm welcome again, Sanjay. Parveen Mahtani is the Chief Legal Officer for Mahindra Lifespaces. Parveen, great to have you here.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Rangarajan is the Group COO for Housing.com, PropTiger.com, and Makan.com.
Nice to be here, Jimmo. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'll get down to the questions right away. Before we do a deep dive into the topic, I'd sort of, like to get a sense of, your observations and your thoughts on this. So we've all read the articles, we've seen the data points, clearly the pandemic has made women sit up and take notice about, the importance of owning a home as compared to, say, living on rent or living in shared accommodations. This transition, why do you think this has happened? What have been your experiences and your observations? Reeza, I'd like to start with your thoughts first.
So, Jumur,
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. So, real estate, I think, has always been a male bastion, right? But has seen increased interest from women over the last couple of years. And today, women are not just critical advisors in home buying decisions, but they have rather transitioned into new age home buyers.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just take a step back and say that, I always like to look at the negative first before talking about the positive, right? Now, COVID has impacted women overall. And on the negative side, I would say that COVID has actually set back women empowerment by almost 2 decades. That's because of the lack of support systems. It's the lack of creches, daycares. Women have actually struggled to stay in the workforce today. So while India's economy was growing and increasing GDP, working age population expected to climb over 800 million by 2050, I'm seeing that despite this growth, women account for only 20% of the labor force of India. So this low participation rate, all of us are aware of. It could be because of gender wage gap. There's a lack of safety policies at work. Is there a lack of flexible work offerings, etc.? But what COVID has done is there is a high unemployment rate and there has been a certain amount of job stagnation which has happened. So today, more than 26% of Indian women are considering leaving the workforce altogether compared to about 23% of their global sample. But take the flip side. If we just increase this women's labor force participation by about 10 percentage points, I would say that this could add almost $770 billion to India's GDP by 2025. So there is massive potential to usher in a new era by just focusing on the she economy. Right? Now, what is the positive that the pandemic has actually posed for us? In the recent past, I'm saying that we have seen a remarkable trend of women's preference for real estate with wanting to buy a home for end use and for investment as compared to men. They've moved from being an influencer to a key decision maker. This is being brought about by a perception about just wanting to invest. Why not diversify my portfolio today? So it's not just about getting a safe and secure nest. The new regulatory regime, I think, brought by RERA, etc., has been one of the key drivers of this interest of women buying homes. They're more progressive, they're more risk-oriented, they're enjoying an equal positioning with men today. And this shift has actually, in their financial investment approach, has brought about a move from investing in gold or fixed deposits to real estate. We are seeing that, that only gives them a sense of stability. It diversifies their portfolio. There is capital appreciation in the long run. there is rental income, and there is healthy returns. And of course, what the overall scenario is driving it, because there is affordability, there is offers, and there is discounts which our developers are offering, and then definitely the home loan rates as well. So, and at Embassy specifically, we've seen that this has registered an increase of almost 25% increase on our sales directly to women homeowners in the last FI, which is definitely an upward trend from our past numbers. And this is a target market that we will continue to focus on.
Yeah. Parveen, would you say that Mahindra Lifespaces, you've seen a similar sort of trajectory business-wise as far as women home buyers are concerned? What has been your experience?
Absolutely. See, the real estate industry as a whole is making an extraordinary comeback with women home buyers, is what we really see. It's actually more of an evolution of a woman as a homemaker to a home buyer. And it's not just about single women buying more homes, okay? It's about a whole set of women workforce that had earlier quit jobs, with now flexible working hours, hive off of what we call the work from home, if not a full work from home, really allows them to continue to work without having the hassles of a choice between a career and a home, or the commuting hassles which were there, and therefore they had to quit those jobs. They're now coming back and working in different ways, whether with corporates or professions, smaller entrepreneurships. And therefore, it comes on to the need of having security, stability, independence. It's actually about having a safe place, which you call your home. And I think it comes from the context where in India, unlike its foreign counterparts, we don't really have a great social security system. So therefore, what does an average Indian really do? We spend most of our life working to pay off EMIs to buy that one home which we will have during retirement. And therefore, that sense of security, not just for the male member of the family, more so for the women, because a large number of population of women in India are dependent. And therefore, providing them security is what is the realization. It's also correlated to the fact where in the pandemic, women are taking on more household responsibilities because the men are back home now, which used to be when they used to be at the office, the household responsibility would be less. The children being at school, the household responsibility was less. Therefore, the entire concept of what is a house, what is the function that the house itself needs, and therefore a combination of that is what we're seeing as a reason for why homeowners on the women as a joint co-ownership, all these models is increasingly making an extraordinary comeback.
Yeah. So Sanjay, Parveen and Reeza, they've given us great insights, from the developer's perspective. Tell us what's happening on the home finance front. What have been your observations?
Yeah, I think Reeza and Parveen have already spoken about the change in the ecosystem that is happening. I will talk about one key thing, and that is buy versus rent. So this is the debate that always used to happen, and it was a very objective debate. Yeah. So a buy versus a rent. And rentals in India are as a percentage much lesser than the capital appreciation, and hence objectively looks like renting is a better option than buying. But I think what pandemic and what involvement of the woman in the entire decision making has done is that it has made it back to a functional and an emotional decision, and that's what buying a home is. So your first home is not your investment, it is your need, it is your necessity, it provides you a space. The second home is what we could say that it's an investment opportunity. So I think we have seen this significant for own consumption, and so while Reeza is saying about between them, they are saying about 25%. We're seeing 45 to 50% of the entire consumption on finance coming in for people who are taking it for their own usage rather than for investments. And women are a significant part of it because they are helping increase the eligibility of the home that they can buy. So like previously, and this is whether she is working or not working, because women still have savings and they have their portfolios. So I think this is a significant swing that women have done. It's not just a decision of how where to buy a property, but I think how big a property. I think she continues to be the home manager. I don't know what's the right. So from homemaker, what she becomes, and this is irrespective of whether she works or not. I think she's the home manager. So whether it is allocating space, that's that crunch that has come because of COVID at home, I think that's her responsibility, and she would have taken that and taken that decision. So we see that significant change happening in Kotak and in most of the other banks as well.
Mani, from a search point of view, from the perspective of the business that you're representing, what are the kind of trends that you have seen, especially due to the pandemic?
Sure. So I think the trends which we are seeing in India are mirroring that in the US. So for example, if you take the US and take the top 50 metros there, single women tend to own more homes than single men. And if you look at the percentage of single women who are first-time home buyers, so single women who are first-time home buyers constitute about 19% of all home buying in the US, compared to about 15% for single men. We are seeing similar kind of trends in India, while India is not there as yet. I totally agree with Reeza that women have transitioned from being influencer in terms of buying a home to being the actual decision maker and buying a home for herself. So on Housing.com, for example, over the last couple of years, we have seen a very, very strong growth in women audience. And in fact, about 35 to 40% of all the searches on our platform come in through women. In fact, that's why during the brand campaign that we ran during the course of 2020, we took the position of women being decision makers. So we ran the brand campaign featuring Kiera Advani and Vicky Kaushal. And so positioning was that women are the decision makers when it comes to purchasing a home. So we're seeing similar trends on the Prop Tiger business as well. So when I look at the period January to May 2020, so only about 22-23% of all the purchases were made by women. And when we look at things post-pandemic, we're seeing that about 30% of all home buyers are women.
Yeah.
And there's another interesting trend that we are seeing as well. So women are preferring larger size homes. So if you look at the percentages of women buying homes across price buckets, about 30% of women are buying homes more than 1 crore. About 50% from 50 lakhs to 1 crore. And about 20% of women are buying homes less than 50 lakhs. So this is a significant change we are seeing, where women are tending to prefer 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom homes as opposed to single bedroom and 2-bedroom homes. So that's a trend which we are clearly seeing out there. We're also seeing women clearly look at amenities like daycare. In fact, we are working on a consumer sentiment survey that we'll be releasing pretty soon. And in that, what's come across is that one of the most important amenities that developers need to have in the projects that they're building are daycare centers. Right. So I think overall, I think my fellow panelists have said it extremely well, that women are emerging as a force to contend with and are emerging as very, very strong buyers in the Indian real estate market.
So I'd like to take up our audience question, because I think what this question does is it sort of makes us, broad base this particular issue at hand, and, sort of forces us to look at, all the other factors at play. So I'd like to take up Balaji Sheshadri's question. And the question is, what has really made the paradigm shift towards home buying in the name of women? Is it the PMAY? Is it property rights, working women, women's empowerment, education, tax benefits, or the return on real estate investment? Now, I think this is a great question, because it sort of broad bases the entire ecosystem, because this is not just a financial phenomenon, right? It's a cultural shift, it's a social shift, and I think we have to talk about that. So, Reeza, how would you like to answer this question?
So, like you rightly said, Jumur, I mean, I don't think this is only about owning a home. I mean, about financial incentives or anything anymore. I think it's also about each of us would want to have our own space. And I don't think it really matters if we're married or not, whether that's with roommates, whether we have a partner, whether people are going to make the biggest financial decision of their life, right? Yeah. So I think all of this is now playing a role in how women are actually looking at their empowerment, spelling their independence, their success. In recent surveys, I would say that, just to corroborate what Mani was saying, I think over 70% of women actually considering now to be the ideal time to buy a property as well. Now, there is real estate has always been a function of the market. It cannot just be pure social dynamics at play on this. There is a huge market and environment which is positive as far as this is concerned, right? So we are seeing that women are actually driving these purchase decisions. 74% of purchase decisions today are being driven by women, right? Apart from that, let's take it from another perspective. Like I mentioned, financial incentives. We always say that a prudent person makes an investment when the markets are subdued and low. So aren't the current market condition present day apparently one of the best times to buy a house, right? So the best times we can talk about a lower interest rate. The RBI actually linking the loan interest rate to an external benchmark like repo, right, which has only sweetened the home loan plan. Of course, the Indian social structure, typical Indian thought is about settling down and therefore about owning a home. We also spoke about renting. Is that a better option? But we'll say rentals are only going to move upwards. So if I buy a home now at present day rates with lower home loan interest rates, doesn't that make perfect sense? Right? Also, the price points of real estate have largely remained constant since 2016. So if one actually considers today's annual inflation rates, present day prices are effectively at discounted levels already, right? And also a part of it is that, today's slowdown is also part of the business cycle. This is bound to happen. The pandemic, we didn't see it coming, but this is part of the business cycle, but which will eventually turn around with the kickstart of economic growth. Yeah. And also from an aspect of investing into real estate, a woman does not necessarily have to just look at buying a house anymore. That's not just about real estate investment. You can even invest it in instruments like REIT, for example, right? So one can sell and buy publicly on major stock exchanges. So Embassy REIT is an example of that, one of the largest office players in the industry. And the fact that there is REIT must pay out about 90% of income to its investors. So they typically offer higher dividends than many stocks. So from a real estate asset class perspective also, now as an option, the options are diverse to a woman on how she wants to enter and invest in real estate.
Yeah. So, Parveen, do you agree, in effect, what the question I think is sort of trying to hint at is, what are the roles of incentives, whether it's from the government, whether these are societal financial incentives. So do you think that all the things mentioned, whether it be government measures, tax measures, whatever, do you think this incentivization, do you think this has helped, women sort of, take this decision?
Totally. I think it's just been sweeteners, the way Reeza put it, that these are sweeteners. But is that the fundamental reason why a person makes a decision to buy a home? No. I think it's more about security, diversifying your investment portfolio. It's also important that there are benefits. There's capital appreciation. There's rental income that you can really make on that. Once you retire, you get that rental income. So you've invested in an asset. So it's not always a home for self-use. It could be for multiple reasons that you're buying an asset, and that's what really needs to be looked at. And in terms of timing, I think Reeza already touched upon that. Given that inflation and where prices really haven't moved, there's only the cost of labor which has gone up, your cost of commodities has gone up. So really, this is probably one of the best times to purchase a home, because the underlying appreciation will definitely kick in the years to come. What is happening also is and it was there and it continues there is a higher disposable income, and therefore there is that model of why people want to rent. So I think it's a combination of having disposable income or joint income when there are two, the wife and the husband earning out together. You want portfolio diversification, you're looking at rental income, and then coupled with the multiple tax and fiscal benefits, make it a package of why it is the best time.
Yeah. So, Sanjay, Parveen made an interesting point, the sweeteners versus the fundamental reasons. So how do you balance out the two? Which one do you think is playing a greater role right now? Do you agree with her, or do you have a slightly different take on this?
So I think the point that they both made is very clear. There are two kinds of buying. One is for a self-use. The other is as an investment. Now, when you're buying for self-use, you don't need sweeteners too much. It's a critical requirement that you need. So maybe what you require is how tax efficient it is. How does it help you save taxes? Can you, how does the bank or the financer look at you as an individual while giving a loan? Yeah. So that's your house that you're doing your home purchase. I think the second, what they are saying, sweeteners could add a little value when you're buying as an investment. So because you are now looking financially, so you're saying a 50 lakh loan, I'll make, because the rate of interest is very low. So just to give you a number, a few years back, the rate of interest was about 9%. Now it is about between 6.6 to 7%. That means that you're saving about 7 to 8,000 on a 50 lakh loan every month. And let's say you take a loan for 8 years, you're saving about a lakh. That's about 7 to 8 lakhs in a year. There are discounts available if you are in certain areas. You're again making about 4 to 5% discount. That's about 2.5 lakhs. You are getting a tax benefit of 2 lakhs. That on a, let's say, a 30% tax rebate comes to 66,000. On an 8-year comes to about 4 lakhs. So on a 50 lakh loan, you're actually making 15 lakhs. So you're thinking from an investment. Now this is an investment decision that I'm saving 15 lakhs for a period of 8 years, and my upfront capital is 50 lakh. That too, I don't need to put. In fact, a very nice thing that Parveen said, this is the only asset class which without liquidating can give you revenue. None of the other, even if you're talking about an equity investment, unless you liquidate, you cannot get capital. You cannot have money in your account. So I think that's the third point, which is a huge one. Even if, let's say, the market is down, I'm not able to sell, at least I can rent it out. So I think that these 2 or 3 things add to the value that a woman sees in buying a house. And then I think Reeza talked about it, the RERA part of it. So women are risk averse. We see that in our portfolio. So not just on the housing side, when we look at on the investment side, the kind of portfolios that they get into, whether it is mutual funds or equity or shares, they will not get into kind of stocks that men get into. Their portfolios will be, they get into equity investment, but within them, they will get into less risky investments. RERA, that is what RERA has done to the entire industry. So RERA has got the risk almost to zero. You don't have to negotiate with a developer right now. What you see is what you get, even if it is under construction. So I think these 2-3 changes that have happened, and obviously whether it is investment versus home, that's how she's going for the decision.
So, Mani, Sanjay is speaking about, investment versus the end user. Now, we've realized over the last couple of years that even end users, they are thinking from the investment perspective as well. They are finally thinking about their ROI. So we have an interesting audience question that I'd like to take up. So Seema Gupta asks, is a home a good investment option for appreciation in 5 years, especially considering today's market? So I think we do need to, if we are encouraging women to sort of go in for real estate, as an investment asset class, we do need to talk about, the kind of ROI and how it stacks up as compared to other investment options. So what would you like to say to Seema?
Sure. So last year, when the pandemic took place, and we did 2 consumer sentiment surveys, and in both consumer sentiment surveys, both men as well as women were of the view that real estate was the most stable and secure asset class out there. So about 42% of the audience preferred to buy real estate, as opposed to holding assets in the form of gold, stocks, or mutual funds. Right? So when you look at how real estate performed as a category and how the real estate has performed as a category over the last few years, just want to draw attention to Reeza's point where she's mentioned that real estate is actually now almost trading at a discounted value compared to the last few years, because bearing a couple of markets like Hyderabad as well as Ahmedabad, the rate of capital appreciation in real estate has been pretty low. But all of that is changing right now. So because even during the pandemic last year, when a lot of real estate pundits following the real estate market said that prices were going to crash and developers would have to lower prices by about 25%, I don't think the market reacted that way, and developers held on to the prices, right? So we have seen that real estate has really not eroded in value and is not subject to the kind of volatility that you find in, let's say, gold or in stock, which are much more riskier assets to hold. So there are twin benefits in holding real estate. One is capital appreciation, and I believe that real estate is headed for a price rise once the pandemic gets over, for the simple reason that it's become more expensive for developers to construct with the prices of raw materials increasing, and also the fact that there's not been capital appreciation in the last few years. So I think the prices of real estate will rise by the end of the year. We've already seen pockets where the prices of real estate has increased in places like, for example, Hyderabad, and also in cities such as Bangalore, and also in Noida extension. The second thing is that real estate also brings rental home income, and while rental yields are not great at this point in time, you always have the option of letting out your home to the PG kind of format, the co-living kind of format, where you can achieve like better yields when it comes to rental income. I'd just like to add another point, which is not really connected with this question. So about 50% of women property buyers are in the 25 to 35 age group, and so the millennial women are very, very progressive and very risk oriented when it comes to financial independence. So what real estate gives women is like a great sense of ownership, stability, and given that we expect capital appreciation and rental income, healthy returns. So I think this has driven a lot of growth in real estate buying amongst women. The other factor which has also driven real estate buyers amongst women is the fact that India is undergoing massive urbanization. And so when you look at women migration to urban location, it's only prudent, and both from a safety as well as security perspective, it makes sense to buy homes. So for example, when you look at demand for real estate amongst women, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Pune stand out in terms of women demand for real estate. So in short, I think it's a great time to buy real estate. Interest rates at an all-time low. You have prices which are also low, and I believe prices will begin to rise over the next couple of quarters. And also given the safety and security aspects that the home brings in, particularly in the time of pandemic, I don't think there's a better time to buy.
True. So we've been talking about women now. I have an expert panel with me. I'd like to sort of slice this down further. I would like to understand better, who are these women who are buying these homes? Are they single? Are they married? Are we looking at older women buying? Are we looking at younger women coming in? I think it would be great if we could share some insights about, who are these women who are buying these homes with our audience members. It would be really useful. So, Reeza, who are the kind of people who are buying properties at Embassy?
So what we are seeing is that it's families that are coming. right? And the husband's actually encouraging women to put their name on the so it is married women for sure, right?
Okay.
And but of course, as research tells us, I mean, have we approached the single women in a much more interesting fashion as far as advertising is concerned? Have we reached out to them? Have we given them the proposition of why buying a home makes so much sense today, right? But also, it's about the kind of products that we can offer. So while 90% of married women prefer to buy a house in their vicinity of the workplace, along with necessary social infrastructure for their family, we are finding that single women are actually location agnostic. Earlier they would have said that we want to be in urban areas, etc. But the pandemic has actually changed things around, because they are today looking for a sense of comfort, a sense of convenience. All of these are extremely important when they make their purchase decision. So only about 76% about single women are today fixated with that idea of a particular neighborhood. I want to be in this area. Otherwise, they are willing to look at suburbs as a probable option. So our recommendation constantly to these women have been about buying homes in integrated township, where they get the convenience, where they get the comfort, they get the aspects of community living, and they're also embedded with requirements of daily living, be it education, be it healthcare, be it high street retail, entertainment, all of that. They also pose several walk to work options. Right. Yes. So all of this is holistic living is still a very important aspect when a woman actually makes that decision to buy. And we are seeing that it is married women who are largely making the decision, because it gives them the sense of stability and empowerment, independence, and success. But single women are also coming forward to make that decision.
Yeah. So, Parveen, from a business point of view, would your company's observations be on similar lines, or do you have some other take on this? What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely. I think it's still more of the married women that are part of it, and I think it's more about a realization about uncertainty which the pandemic brought in. And therefore, given that life itself is uncertain, the fact that there is your largest share of your income going into buying a home, therefore ensuring that there are enough co-applicants, co-owners, and doesn't create complication if one of them, if it's a sole owner and the person passes away, and how it would get transferred to the heirs, or could there be loss of the asset, loss of the finance situation itself. I think all of that is coupled with giving a sense of security to the family, which has come in, and that's become one of the reasons of wanting to either buy a home where none exists. Then it's now about the time to actually have a home. So if anything happens, at least the family has a home. It is about including the wife in it, so that there is a sense of continuity for not just the wife, but the children, the parents, that concept which is there. Yes, and integrated townships, because I think what the last 14 months of living in a lockdown situation for most of us has been a realization that you can really have a balanced lifestyle. I think what was really happening was the amount of time in commute, there was really no time for either family life or pursuing any kind of hobbies, leisure, fitness. All of that had taken such a back seat and kept on taking more of a setback, which has now come more to the forefront, because there is the option of having that time available. It's just shut your laptop and you have it, and you save all that excess time. Therefore, people want more of an integrated township setup, even if it is a bit of a distance, but because it is got the entire inclusive housing concept, which is what happened, right? We're being declared as micro containment zones. You cannot step out within certain perimeters. Therefore, you need everything within that gated community. So that concept has, I think, taken on more in a strong way, where the quantum of marketing and effort that was required earlier for a similar project, that has substantially now become the USP of a project. So it's very, very different of how everything is now being perceived. So like Reeza covered, walk to work, all of that has become more important than it is now. It is that distance which was there is not much of a criteria, because I think a lot of people have reconciled either by option or being forced to, that they will be within a work from home setup in any kind of hived off manner.
Yeah.
And with that realization, therefore, you see that entire change that is taking place.
Yeah. So Sanjay, in terms of home finance, products, have you noticed, any kind of trends, in terms of what women prefer, as compared to their male counterparts? Are there any interesting insights you can share with us?
I think so. Two things. One, in terms of the roles that they take. So when we are talking to, let's say, a family, let me first address the family.
Okay.
The roles are clearly divided. Who's talking figures? Who's talking financial? Who's talking discounting? Who's doing the negotiation? And we have seen that most of the times it's a man. And I'm not being stereotyped. I'm just telling facts. And when a woman sits across a developer or a financer, she's more concerned about the ecosystem. She's more concerned about the layout. Are two bedrooms together? Which is how many bedrooms have a bathroom? Men generally discount all this. They don't realize. I think post-purchase dissonance would be there for men. This house, did I buy the right house? But I think, so that's what the woman does in the entire decision making. She gets that functionality in the house, which we have seen. The other thing is that we are very comfortable with women because as home buyers, they are extremely credible. They are very disciplined. They are less leveraged. They will not take risk. They will not take more than what they can chew. So this is a tacit understanding across all banks and financiers that women are more disciplined in their finances, and hence and that's why you see a lot of banks, their rate of interest are different for women, and you have that differential. I don't know whether that is good or not, but the data says that women have stronger CIBIL scores than men. I think so. The second point that we said, which is single women. So a very recent example, and we are seeing, while I completely agree with Parveen and Reeza that majority the numbers are still with married women, but I'm seeing a significant shift towards single women, and these are women who were staying with their parents. And there's a very recent example, at least 3 or 4 examples, where the father or the parents wanted to have a discussion with us that are we taking the right decision? And what pandemic has done is that for a single woman, her independence and freedom is workplace. It is not her home when she is staying with a family. Now, when you start working from home, suddenly that independence and freedom is gone. So you still need that freedom and independence. And there are a lot of parents who come back and say, my daughter is working. I now want to have a separate house for her. We want to maybe in the same building, maybe close by, but I want an independent house for her. So while those numbers are not significant, but we are seeing that 5-7% numbers still coming in, where parents wanting to set up house for their daughters much before she's even getting married.
Yeah, I think Jumor is having some problems in terms of connectivity. So let me just take a couple of questions, when she gets back on line, right? So, hello? Jumor,
can you hear me? I'm back.
Yeah, come back. Okay, cool. I was just going to ask a question to Sanjay.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, I will bring in an audience questions and Mani, because we've spoken about working women, we've spoken about single women, we've spoken about married women. Now, Maya Agarwal has a question that can a housewife get a home loan to buy a house? So, Sanjay, what is the...
So absolutely a housewife. So irrespective of who's taking the finance, it is important that there's a capability to pay that back. There's an income which needs to be there to pay any asset, whether it is a home loan. So housewife can take, and we give loans to housewives. The only thing is, and there are certain housewives which have income because they have income generated from their investments. They don't need to necessarily go out and work. But there are also housewives who have their spouses or somebody else as a co-applicant for the source of income. So as long as there's a source of income, housewives can avail of loans. And we give huge percentage of loans to housewives. Sorry, I think Jumar,
Yes. So so one of the questions that Sanjay, if you can answer, is what do you expect in terms of home loan rates? So do you expect them to remain the same, or do you see home loans rates go down still further over the next couple of months?
I think so very, very good point, Mani. I think what has beautifully happened that I think Reeza or Parveen, they talked about it, linked to EBLR, which is RBI rate, and hence it becomes very transparent. So now the home loan rate is dependent upon two things. One, the risk associated in the market, and what the rates that RBI set up. So in the last RBI meeting in their monetary policy, they clearly said that the next 2 to 3 months, the call is that they want to be, they're not seeing inflation going up, and hence interest rates will more or less be stable. So going by their if I were to go by the guidance, it's very tough to predict. But if I go by that guidance, then it seems as if the interest rates will stay on like this for some time at least.
Great.
But I think the other thing, Mani, is that one is the interest rate. The other is the availability of homes available at very attractive prices. I think that a lot of developers have realized. And you see most of the developers now, and Reeza and Parveen represent some of the most established players in the market. They have realized that it is important to be moving into volumes and be taking care of your inventory rather than just positioning. So that's a huge difference. And the prices are so realistic right now that irrespective, so one is the home loan interest rates, but I think the real estate prices are so realistic across that if somebody wants that, there should be no reason to look twice at the home loan prices.
Yeah. So, Parveen, I'm going to take up one legal question. We've had quite a few audience members, sort of ask on the lines that, from a checklist point of view, when a woman is buying a home, considering, that the rules differ state to state, can we give them a broad indicative checklist as to what do they need to be careful about?
Sure. So one, of course, I think, which is a fantastic legislation, which is in existence since the last couple of years, is RERA. It is a central statute, and therefore, while there are rules and regulations which are applicable from state to state, they are in consonance with the Central Act. Now, what does that really mean in very, very simple consumer terms? I think what people need to realize that it's probably the most forward-looking legislation that the real estate sector across different sectors has got, because it is completely digital.
Yeah.
Right from registration of a project to monitoring it on a quarterly basis, you can do that sitting in your house, which was earlier never possible. So what does that really do? Before you buy a home exactly about the developer, it's their credentials, what is their past experience, the entire project, the title of it, the progress of it is on a quarterly basis updated. And when you actually visit the website, you can see the percentage completion of the project. And therefore, when any developer is demanding the money from you, seeing a milestone is completed, you can correlate and check that. Your possession date is very clear, which was earlier at times a gray area. There used to be developers where there was no clarity. It was relied on the contract, and the contract would all be one-sided. All of that is really taken away, brought in so much of trust and transparency that even during the pandemic, and I think that was the true test, a lot of developers have, including Mahindra Lifespace, where there has been launches, registration of the project, that means not just a developer, as a private body is able to register the project. A government body as RERA is a paperless filing with them. You register the project. People without visiting a sample flat are buying a flat. So there's no touch and it's paperless. And you're still making a real estate either home decision, investment decision. I think it's an amazing digital acceleration that has taken place, which therefore this has been possible. What's also important is that apart from RERA, your stamp duty really differs from state to state. While there have been relaxations because of the pandemic, how stamp duty really is governed is what they call the ready reckoner rate, the circle rate. Then, of course, the market value at which you're buying, whichever is higher, that's what the stamp duty gets paid at. Even within a city, whether you take Bengaluru or you take Mumbai or Delhi, it is the locality also which decides what is that market rate, what is that ready reckoner rate, and then correlate the stamp duty. So therefore, the location that you buy in also makes the difference. So therefore, what is really the checklist, if we say that in a very simplistic sense, that you would have to keep in mind is one, the affordability. Whether you're buying it on your own or a joint purchase, the affordability is the criteria, because there is a home loan that will be given only to a certain amount. There is the balance margin money that you have to pay, which is your own contribution, plus the stamp duty registration charges. So that calculation is definitely required. It was earlier touched upon earlier, you have to build a credit score, because that determines your eligibility for that home loan, which Sanjay was talking about. Coupled with that, the government incentives. Now, whether it's on the taxation side or stamp duty and other relaxations or the PMAY scheme, all of that is the third factor, I would say, that you need to look at. And then, of course, your contingency plan. How have you planned for emergencies? Because it is a long cycle by which you would be making the payments if you're going through the home loan and you do not have that upfront large capital to invest. This is how I would say you really bundle it to decide about what home to purchase, where to purchase, and what is the value of that home you're purchasing.
Thanks for those tips, Parveen. So we have time for one last question. So we've done, the entire conversation has been very consumer centric. So my last question is going to be more industry oriented, because you're all industry representatives. Now, this is what I'd like to understand, that for us to improve our branding and marketing communications in terms of attracting women home buyers, is there a correlation? Do we believe, that as the gender diversity in the sector improves, we will have better communication and better campaigns targeting women home buyers? Reeza, what do you think?
So we spoke about the female economy and that being on the rise. But most developers, if you see, do the opposite with the advertising. They focus on the men, right? So, and it's interesting, Jamur, because men and women actually approach a purchase decision with very different motives, perspectives, rationales, considerations. But why doesn't that then get addressed in your advertising? I would say that that's also largely because, like you rightly mentioned, most of the companies today, real estate companies today, are, with no discredit to my male colleagues, are headed by men. So, there is almost a chance of bias when the communication also happens. So it is time that, women make the decisions, we recognize it, we should be marketing to them as well, right? Women today are far more responsive, and they've always been much more emotional than men. So women are far more responsive to emotional advertising. So this can be brought onto the table by having a more gender inclusive team as far as, setting up your residential real estate team is concerned. Women come with certain capabilities that men don't have. And of course, men have capabilities that women necessarily don't display, right? So in your sales process also, it's important to focus on the decision maker. Largely, sometimes, more often, the women tends to keep quiet when it comes to a decision. There are specific points that the husband may be concerned about. There are specific points that the women are concerned about. For example, the husband always asks about construction methodology, the car parks, the payment timelines, things like that, where women tend to focus on amenities, maintenance cost, what do my children do, which are the closer recreational centers, the social infrastructure, etc. So at Embassy, like I mentioned to you before this conversation as well, that we've tried to stay away from just doing events around Women's Day alone. While we do things around Women's Day, I think it's important for us as a real estate industry to kind of open that communication out and be able to attract a larger segment, since we're saying that 74% of decisions globally are being driven by women, right? So this is where it is. And I think as developers, we have a massive opportunity, and it's up to us to grab it at this point of time. Women, I don't think, are not asking for exclusivity. I think they're looking for inclusivity, be it on the employment side or on the home side. And it's up to us as the government, as the developer community, or as families to offer that.
Yeah. So, Parveen, what's your take on this? Do we need to be more efficient? Do we need to be more pinpointed, in the way we are speaking to our women consumers?
No, absolutely. I totally resonate what Reeza had to say. And I think it is how the functionality of the home. I think what people at times forget now, even when you're planning a home and you're talking of your design team and other core functions, if you do not plan it in a manner which is functional in use, a man always looks at a house from a very different perspective. But the person who runs the house, who manages the house, the way the kitchen functions, or do you really have, the drying space? Now, if you look at the way projects are when you plan it and you launch it, and then you look at it 5 years later, a particular building looks in a particular way. Why is that? Because there are features that should have been provided for are not provided for, and then therefore the makeshift requirements of clothes hanging, this, that, everything which has been overlooked. Now, these are all essentials of part of planning a home and designing a home. And then when all of that is not looked at, this is what really happens. So it is including women, not just as a consumer when you're selling it. It starts right from project planning. And that leading then to a final sale to a consumer is the entire length of the approach of where all women need to be included.
Yeah. So, Mani, do you see a correlation between having greater workforce, women workforce in the real estate companies and the way we are addressing female consumers?
Absolutely. Like both on housing and PropTech, we make sure that there's a healthy balance between men and women in the workforce. So another thing that I'd like to mention is one of the processes that we follow at PropTech when we execute a sale. So whenever we are selling a home to a couple and the home is registered in the name of the man, we always make sure that we meet the family and we ensure that the decision to purchase the home has a complete ownership of the women as well. And honestly, we have data to substantiate the fact that when the women is also involved in the decision making and fully supports the purchase, and the cancellation rates tend to be far lower.
Sure.
So I think it's very, very important, as Reeza mentioned. It's not just about exclusivity towards women, but inclusivity and make them part of the whole decision-making process.
Yeah. So, Sanjay, you get to have the last word now. As far as the home finance sector is concerned, the gender diversity is obviously better than what we have in the real estate sector. So what are your thoughts, in terms of how do we target women home buyers? Right. What is the communication that's required?
Absolutely. So we are at a gender diversity of about 30 to 32% at a bank as an organization. And there's something internally that we are doing. We realize that we want to be at close to 50%. That's how our families are. If you go back home and see, our families are completely diverse. You have 50% diversity at home. Then why not have similar diversity at workplace? And we have realized that customers who interact with diverse staff, they give us that feedback. So it's not about a lady talking to a sales girl. It's about generally when she enters our office, does she notice that there's diversity in the office? I think those, and we have received plenty of mails where they have appreciated the diversity that they see at workplace.
Yeah.
I think what we are trying to do, while from a developer perspective, what Reeza and Parveen, from a marketing perspective, they have addressed, what we are trying to do is that make the entire home loan process very clutter free. So, there are a lot of lingos, and there are a lot of fine print, and there's something that you sign and then you realize, oh, I didn't go through in detail. Now we understand that when we interact with women, they once they trust, then they trust.
Yeah.
We are trying to make the entire experience very clutter free, and I think digital is helping us big time. So we have created digital journeys. While in that digital journey, so we do not have women as a separate segment. We have women as well as men, and we reach out to them separately as individuals. But we realize that the more clutter-free we make the entire home loan journey, whether through digital or any other process, the more we will be able to attract the women segment, because they want a clutter-free journey. They want whatever you have said, whatever you have signed, they want to go by that. They don't want to keep negotiating. So we are trying to achieve that. And I think with our internal diversity increasing, we should be able to do a much better job in maybe a year's time from now.
All right. So amen to that. Thank you, panelists. This was a really stimulating and a really great discussion. Thank you, audience members, for being with us. We hope to see you soon. Till then, please stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.